Welcome, friends. It's nighttime here, and everyone in my house is sick, including myself. So I wanted to go ahead and get this very important video out to you, but it will only be part one, and I'll have to do a second part in a couple of days when I'm feeling better. This past summer, as I was doing several deep dives into learning more about the Duggar family, I came across a show on TLC I had never seen before called The Willis Family Show. I had no idea who they were, and again, I hadn't seen the show before. When I looked up information about them, I was shocked at what I discovered. The Willis Family Show was TLC's attempt to make another show much like the Duggar family. The oldest sister of the Willis Clan is named Jessica Willis. She is extremely brave, and she's really the star of this video. Here I want to give a disclaimer. This video includes really horrific stories about what happened to the children on this show. In many ways, it will be more difficult to listen to than most of the videos I've made about the Duggars. So please be careful before listening and take care of yourself. I'll see you in a couple of days when I'm feeling better. In 2014, a family of entertainers made up of 12 children, known on stage as the Willis Clan, reached the quarterfinals of Season 9 of America's Got Talent. They lost on the show, but really they won when they were signed on for a reality TV show called The Willis Family. The show aired on TLC in 2015 and 2016. The Willis Family Show was like a second coming of the Duggars for TLC. The show follows the family of 14 from Nashville, Tennessee, demonstrating their music, dancing skills while sharing talents and balancing a life at home. Parents Toby and Brenda Willis have 12 children, 8 girls and 4 boys. However, despite sound ratings, the show was canceled on September 11, 2016, because Toby Willis, the patriarch of the Willis family, was arrested on 4 counts of child R, and the victims were his own daughters. The Willis family had a strong Christian and musical heritage with roots from South Chicago. They moved to Nashville in 2001 and have made regular appearances at the Grand Ole Opry. SA Today says Toby and Brenda Willis have been a strong couple since high school when he was a junior and she was a senior. Both Toby and Brenda are from Chicago, but moved their family to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue a musical career. Brenda Willis was the school valedictorian. Toby once dreamed of being an Olympic wrestler. Early on in their relationship, there was a massive family tragedy, and it's important to the story that happens later. Toby Willis came from a large family. He was the second of Reverend Scott and Janet Willis's large brood of 9 children. However, his family would be devastated after a fatal van accident left 6 of the 9 Willis children dead. The accident occurred in Wisconsin. As Reverend Scott and his wife, Janet Willis, were on their way to Watertown, Wisconsin to visit their son Dan and his family. However, while driving near Milwaukee, a large piece of metal fell out of a truck. Reverend Scott was unable to miss the object, and the van hit it, causing the rear fuel tank to explode. 6 of the Willis' 9 children were in the minivan during the wreck, and all 6 would pass away in the fiery crash. Recalling the incident, Reverend Scott says it happened so quickly that he doesn't remember hearing any sounds from his children as they passed away instantly. Toby and 2 other siblings were not on the trip, and Toby's parents survived, so 3 children and 2 parents are still living in the family. While the story is tragic, the incident sparked an investigation that exposed widespread corruption in the state of Illinois. It was discovered through the Willis van crash accident that the driver of the truck from which the large metal bracket fell received his trucking license through government bribes. The Willis tragedy also exposed a political scandal in Illinois when it was learned that the truck driver whose rig lost that piece of metal had bribed a state worker for his license. The resulting federal investigation and cover-up sent dozens of state employees to jail, including former Illinois Governor George Ryan. In August of 1999, the Willises won a $100 million out-of-court settlement. At the funeral for his 6 children, Grandpa Willis said the following: "We thank God for his preparation for this trial. Janet became a Christian as a teenager after reading a gospel tract that someone had handed her. On February 5th, 1975, I trusted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. A man showed me that I was a sinner, and I knew my own heart. Nobody had ever in my life presented the gospel to me. I put my faith and trust in Jesus Christ. I believe that he died for my sins. I became a Christian that day. Since then, God has been working with us. He has prepared us for this trial. We're not special people. We're sinners and saved by grace. But we're not taking a short view of life. We take a long view. We realize that someday we'll stand before the Lord, and the things that are here will matter very little. God's grace is sufficient for everybody." Following the funeral, Reverend Willis and his wife Janet decided to leave their home on the 2nd floor of the church in Mount Greenwood neighborhood in Chicago after 10 years of working at the church. They wanted a chance to grieve quietly, away from all the well-meaning parishioners, friends, and community members who had flooded into their lives after the accident. Their departure was also, by their accounts, a semi-retirement, a second honeymoon, and a chance to start over. The Willises, who were awarded $100 million for the accident in an out-of-court settlement in August, packed up the family portraits that hung in the hallway and prepared to leave Monday for a 2-week trip to Jerusalem. When they returned, they would take another trip to Florida before settling into their new home in the Printers Row neighborhood of Chicago. While Reverend Willis and his wife Janet were enjoying their new home and getting ready to start their new lives with over $100 million in assets, Brenda and Toby were starting their family. Later, Brenda and Toby said that despite the tragedy, they had hope in the Lord and they understood the importance of family. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that Toby and Brenda Willis then spent the majority of their time with their children, expressing their creativity through music, sports, crafts, and dancing. It was recorded that Brenda said, "When that accident happened, I was married, had 2 kids, and actually we had number 3 on the way. I was pregnant with Jenny." I must wonder what effects this immense tragedy had on Toby Willis and how it influenced the path he would take his family down. I'm sure there was a lot of sorrow and sadness in Toby's life due to losing his siblings. But I also can't help but comment on the fact that it's impossible to find any evidence of another career path for Toby other than managing his children in their musical endeavors. So I really can't help but wonder if the payout from his family's accident resulted in a windfall for Toby and for Brenda. This hasn't been confirmed, but I have to wonder how else Toby was able to have so many children, travel, and devote his life to music without any regular concrete income. Unfortunately, a few years later, a second tragedy would befall Toby and his wife Brenda, though there is little known about the circumstances surrounding it. In 2013, Brenda Willis told the New York Times, 8 years ago, our house burned down to the ground. It was a total loss. I just held my kids and said, thank you, God. It gave me a different perspective on life in comparison to my in-laws' tragedy. When you go through hard things like that, it really strengthens you. Back to the show. The Willis Family Show aired from 2015 to 2016 on TLC. On the show, the family traveled around while mom and dad acted as managers for their family band. They performed, and the show showcased how the family operated smoothly despite having so many children. Shockingly, without any prior warning from news sources, Toby Willis was arrested in Kentucky on September 9, 2016, after fleeing there to avoid arrest on a child R that occurred in Nashville back in 2004. On July 11, 2017, Willis pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child R. Cheatham County Circuit Court Clerk Julie Hibbs confirmed that Willis received 2 25-year sentences on 2 counts and 2 40-year sentences on the other 2. Those sentences will be concurrent and served at 100%, giving Willis a total of 40 years in prison. Even more shockingly, later it was revealed that Toby's victims were his own children. In early 2018, the 6 eldest children, besides Jessica Willis, surfaced to speak out about the SA. On July 25, 2018, the group announced that they would see our youngest siblings on their respective roads to recovery out of the spotlight, while the other siblings, besides Jessica, would be touring beginning in September.
Young women have been open about the fact that you were victims of your father.
For me, it wasn't as conscious of a secret. It was more of just the reality of, okay, we talk about this, and I'm not going to talk about this. So it wasn't as much of a, I'm holding a secret, because it was normalized in my mind and in my life. Yeah.
They announced the same day that they would be releasing the single Speak My Mind on August 10th as a promotion for their upcoming album release of the same name, released on September 28th, 2018. Then, later in 2018, Jessica Willis would finally speak out in a statement on her Instagram page acknowledging the SA by her father. The following are the words of a strong survivor who did the best she could to save her other siblings and to try to move past all the trauma left behind by her father. Jessica Willis is the oldest girl of all of her siblings, and it would turn out that her testimony was crucial in putting her father away and saving her younger siblings. My story of being the front woman of the Willis Clan, the oldest of 12 kids, and the survivor of lifelong SA at the hands of my father. At the beginning of 2016, I was 23 years old. I was known as the blonde lead singer, fiddle player, and principal songwriter of the Willis Clan, and the eldest sister of the 12 kids. We performed on tour frequently, and we were finishing up filming the 2nd season of a reality TV show about our family. A 4th official album was in the works, and there was always something exciting and challenging coming up on the calendar. The turn of the year was also the darkest period of my life. The truth of what I was living every day was nothing like what people saw on the outside. And that jarring discrepancy hadn't come out of nowhere. There was a wound that had always been part of my world, and it had never been addressed. Now it was going to kill me if I didn't find a way to get free of its power. My story is complicated. It's deeply private, personal, and way too long to share in full, just as the story of anyone's life would be. However, after much recent deliberation and soul-searching, I have come to realize that I feel a responsibility to the truth itself, and my conscience demands a public denouncement of the previous life I helped hide for so long. Speculation and confusion has muddled the waters of late, and I've found that the longer I go without speaking, the longer I feel trapped in the continued power of my past. As far back as I can remember, I was SA'd by my father. I figure I was around 3 years old in some of the earliest memories. Initially, I had no way to know that anything was wrong. When I did eventually come to realize the fact, I had no way to accurately express what was happening to me. There followed immense shame, distrust, and hurt throughout my childhood, even in the happy times. Thus ran the 2 parallel storylines that became my life. An initial awareness of questionable behavior began when I was around the age of 9 years old. Something, I'm still not sure what, caused my mother to become suspicious of my father's interactions. I didn't realize there was zero evidence of anything specific, and all I did was nod uncertainly when a few general questions were asked by my mother. I heard my mother raise her voice to my father for the first time in my life, and I thought the adults would figure it out. I didn't understand that my father simply denied any wrongdoing and became more secretive and dangerous from then on. Suffice it to say that my father controlled the family in every single area of life. Underneath the outward foundations of family, religion, and homeschooling with an emphasis in the arts, there was a constant current of manipulation, domination, fear and favor. There was very little room inside the bubble of my world to imagine that there was any alternative. Looking back now, it's almost impossible to face the fact of what my life once used to be. Many things were normal for me that should never have been met with anything other than outrage. The abuse developed and ebbed at various intervals over the years and into puberty. The most graphic SA faded off from me when I was around 17 years old, but many inappropriate actions and attentions continued. From time to time, the ever-growing but still nebulous awareness grew to include more members of the family. Over the years, periodic confrontations happened between my parents and eventually involved various siblings as we struggled to pin down the monster in the shadows that we couldn't seem to pull into the light. I feel like I truly knew that certain other members of my family were being SA'd, and I felt they knew this about me too. Conversations were had, tears were cried, and we questioned how to deal with the situation. But now I realize that since we were all different ages with completely different viewpoints, separate experiences, and limited vocabularies, even when we tried to speak to each other, each person thought they were talking about something different. Once I was no longer being graphically abused, the worst of it became like a purposefully forgotten nightmare, and I tried to thrive in a way I hadn't been able to before. Though I was confused by the many rigorous and philosophical beliefs that were channeled into me by my father, I was getting older and dreaming of a life where I had a future of my own with the possibility of freedom, independence, and love. It bears saying that my first-hand exposure to these things was extremely limited, but I was not completely broken inside as to think they didn't exist at all. My childhood explorations in music and writing provided me a personal tool for self-expression that I now partially credit with saving my life. The innocent, hurt, curious, hopeful child hidden within me gravitated to the magic of storytelling's emotional truth and wisdom. Through my love of these things, I was able to preserve a connection to the deep parts of me that I didn't understand or accept or couldn't explain to the world. It helped me connect with others with authenticity when words failed.
Unfortunately, friends, I'm going to have to stop here because, as you can hear, I'm losing my voice. However, I think this story is really important, and I find it really crazy I didn't know about it before I did my deep dive on the Duggars this summer. I will continue with part 2 in a couple of days. For now, I'm going to settle down with some sleepy time tea and maybe a little bit of Theraflu. I hope you have a good night's rest, and I'll see you in a bit.